Welcome to week 3 of the CeleTake Podcast. I will be your host for today. No, Eric. I am franchise, the league owner. With me, we've got former Sixth Man of the Year, two-time back-to-back champion, Baby Blue Lion, Wolfpack legend, now making a strong case for Sixth Man of the Year again, Zane Burk. Love having this man in the building.
Good introduction.
I got you. And then, the one and only Big Bird himself scored not once, twice last week. At the buzzer on the second one.
Let's go, boy.
Big Bird himself, Kyle King, rookie in the league, great energy off the bench, and trying to help the Bandits team get back on track. Gentlemen, how you feeling tonight?
Feeling good. Excited. Happy to be here.
Feeling great. Weekend's almost here. Sunday's coming around, and it's Bandits' first dub this week. So
let's hope so, man. Interesting matchup.
Dude.
Interesting matchup.
Yeah. Super excited. Super excited.
Well, let's start. We're gonna recap the games from last week. Week 3. Very interesting week. We had the week 2 podcast, and I predicted all 3 games incorrectly. So
let's go.
We'll see if I have better luck this week. But I predicted all 3 of them incorrectly, and Let's break down the first one. You want to talk about Bandits versus Rangers, Kyle King?
Yeah. What an interesting game. I think as a team, collectively, we showed way more heart and passion that we did in the first 2 weeks. Us coming together that week, working through situations and scenarios that we need to work as a team, definitely showed that game. And even though we lost by 4 points, it goes to show that, we are increasingly getting better and trusting each other. So I'll take that any day of the week. I'll take a loss and return that we are working as a team. And furthermore, Rangers hit their shots. We were up by 13 and they started getting hot, and that's the scary thing about the Rangers. You got shooters like Zane, you got shooters like Ann, you got X, and then on top of that, you got to guard Phil. So it was very trying to orchestrate how we can guard all of them at once. So it was good. I think, yes, we lost, and there was no one to blame because we lost by 4 at the end of the day. That's just a team losing, but in momentum shifting, definitely in the right place.
I agree. Zane, what's your take?
What, did they lose by 3? I think you guys actually lost by 3.
70-67, yeah.
Yeah, you guys actually only lost by 3.
One possession game.
And the reason I say that, bro, is you guys came out, good, man. I remember... One thing I love about my team, the Rangers, we're always locked in no matter what. We got really good energy about us, and we work together really well as a team. But 100%, you guys gave us a lot more than we expected out of you. And I'm not going to lie, part of me throughout getting ready, the week before, I kind of felt it coming a little bit because obviously you guys have had stuff going on with your team situation, going 0-2 and trying to make sure everybody's committed 100%, things like that. But I feel like with your guys like Dame, guys like Montel, Pat, Dean, you, Marcus. The energy is Marcus is a great player. The energy was there. It's not like you guys were completely falling apart at the seams. It seemed like something just needed to click. And then you came out and played your best game of the season. So to me, you guys did a great job. But yeah, I love my team, our ability to hit shots. We got behind. It was fun because I said this, or Vaughn on the Mako said this last week to us, or 2 weeks ago to us after the game. But that feels like real basketball. Real competitiveness. That's what we're here. It's fun to dog a team, but it's also a lot of fun to really compete like that. So it was a great game. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely the best game of the week, and I think both teams come out of that game a winner. You guys, the Rangers, came off of a close game, and that's what you guys need to be a championship team. You've seen that the past 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
You have to overcome those late game adversities. Mm-hmm. You're down by 13 late in the second half. You come back. That's how you're going to win a championship. Mm-hmm. And you guys, from going to multiple people wanting to be traded in the beginning of the week to the way that you guys came around each other.
Yeah.
Noah actually formulated a game plan. You guys stuck to the game plan, whether it worked or not. You stuck to it. You wrote it out, and you were in that game with arguably the best team in the league. So you now know that you guys are now up there in that category, and just because you're 0-3, record means nothing in Celly Nation. So
yeah.
I'm very excited to see what happens this week with the Bandits. I think that they're on the rise, but you're also meeting a Magicians team that's on the same kind of note. So I'm excited for that matchup. But let's go into game number 2, an atrocious game. Worst game probably of the season so far. My Dogs versus the Makos. Z-Money, what did you see in this game?
Yeah, man. Obviously, A lot of missed shots. Offenses on both sides were not hitting like they normally hit. It just seemed like a little bit of a slower, I don't know if it was slower pace, but just clunkier by both teams. They didn't seem to move the ball as much as they wanted. You know, Nacho's out there. Nacho and Dom, I could argue, were the two guys that I don't want to say are the heart of those two teams, but depending on how they perform, you'll get a decent look at how that week's going to go. Granted, you have a lot of great players on the Dogs, a lot of great players on the Makos that can make up for it outside, but neither of those guys played particularly well. So I think that just showed in the final score. I mean, 44-41.
Yes.
I
mean, the point at the end of the game matters. Point at the end of the game, Dame, Tone. If we didn't play terrible, I'd be upset.
But I mean, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, regardless, it was just a tough game, and I think both teams have a lot to. You know, if the game before that was a win for both teams, you could argue this game was a loss for both teams because the Makos had their worst performance of the season. Obviously, you guys had your actual first loss of the season, and there's definitely a lot for both teams to look at on the film. I think this next week.
Oh yeah, I've watched the game 5 times now.
Yeah, fair enough.
I broke down the full film for my team. And it caused some debacles and it caused some issues, but I had to be honest with everybody, myself included, and let them know what I'm seeing throughout the game, what we did wrong, miscommunications on the defensive end, and just a lack of ball movement.
Yeah.
And I hope that we addressed it. There's still a lot of turmoil on my squad right now, but we got a bye week, and it couldn't have came at a better time.
Right.
So we definitely got lucky with that. We saw last season, week 2, we lost to the Bandits in terrible style. So we bounced back, didn't lose a game after that. It's you have to have one of those games in your season in order to bounce back, and luckily we're having it early in the season to where hopefully we can fix that. Yeah. Kyle King, what did you see?
I honestly saw 2 great defenses teams. I know, obviously in a game where refs are also players, and you're gonna get missed calls on both sides of the court, and both of your guys' teams are a very defensive player team. I've told you this multiple times. You guys do really well defensively. You guys are down in the first half, and you guys made a comeback and made the stride. And I think that's something that you can guys use for momentum, right? Being down and how mentally you can get back into the game. I mean, on both sides, I really love to see. I love watching Nacho play. Like, that guy is really just something to see when he just moves the ball and he shoots the ball and he passes. Like, he's a very good player, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Makos kind of get a little bashed in the beginning of the season, not trying to be a good team, and now coming out and showing out that they are a competitive team? So I love to see that from them, is taking, growing as a team and actually coming out and swinging hard. Obviously, the Dogs with the first loss, yes, that's going to hurt, but like that, from hurt you can learn, right? Like, from pain you learn from pain and you can move forward, and I think it's a blessing and a curse, just like us, right? We had to lose 2 games to really get back on track and really get back to what we know and why we love basketball. I think that goes back to you guys. You guys got your first loss. It's better to have a loss in the season than in the playoffs, right?
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
That's true, yeah.
Because if you imagine if this was a semifinal game, which I could possibly predict Makos and Dogs may be a semifinal playoff game, you would hate to lose a playoff game off of that, especially the performance on both sides and how everything ended. So I think it's good to nip that in the butt now than later down the road. But I think both teams are very defensive, and you saw a low-scoring game. Yes, missed cold fouls, but defensively wise, that was a very good matchup on both ends.
I agree. I think in the first half, my strategy was to double the ball with Nacho and Fritz. They made us pay. Their other guys hit shots. So we switched it up in the second half. I played man on Nacho. He scored 5 points in the second half, and I think the whole squad, we held them to 16 points in the second half.
That's
I think that we definitely played good defense. We didn't box out very well, myself included, and they grabbed more rebounds than us. It was a poorly managed game by me, and overall, like we're saying, I mean, it's a learning experience. You got to go through these now, and we're lucky that it's happening in week 3 and not in week 1 of the tournament. So.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, man, shout out to Nacho and Fritz, because week 2 when we played them, we had a similar strategy in mind. Trying to double them, kind of. And I think it is a testament to some of the really good role players in the league. And you could say the Makos have some really solid role players on their squad.
Look at Vaughn hitting the clutch 3 at the end of the
Vaughn's
game.
a great player.
Yeah.
Ethan's a great player. Luke can hit some buckets. They got a solid team. And he hit the clutch 3 at the end of the game.
Yes, at 11 seconds left. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. And
that was clutch.
Yeah,
it's
clutch.
big time.
When you just focus, because it's easy just to focus on Nacho and Fritz and say, oh, we'll let everybody else beat us. But then for them, the other guys to beat you, that's pretty great, and that means you have a really well-rounded team.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I agree with that.
The last game of last week, Magicians versus La Familia. I think similar to your game, it was a win for both teams. Both teams were the only teams that played one game, so we didn't really see what they look like. La Familia, very lost after the game with us. I feel like they didn't really know what they were looking for, and they were looking to trade immediately afterwards, and they traded. They got Kyle Arts. They got a guy that they replicated the CHS 2013 or 14 team. They got Kyle, Johnny Victor, Coach Tone, and Quentin. That's 4 of their guys on there, so they got the chemistry.
That means something.
It does. It does. They got chemistry. They played multiple seasons with each other. On the other end, I think Gator got more talent with his team now. He got rid of Brandon Steed, which he had a very guard-redundant team. Not that Brandon Steed's a bad player, but they needed a big. Now they got Nick Choi. I really like their starting 5. It's figuring out who's going to go where. I think 1v1 God played a decent game. He's got to be more of a 5v5 God in order for them to win. He's got to pass the ball.
Yeah.
In the later half of the game, he did that. He had a beautiful feed to Nick Choi down low. And if he's willing to distribute, I think he could be a great option for them and potentially be a starter on that team. But they're lost as far as chemistry and identity. And I think that this is a good game to kind of get them going and figuring that out. It's very early in the season for them. 2 games in, it's like 0-2 means nothing.
Right.
It means nothing.
No, absolutely, man. And I think, the big thing is the bye. And it's nobody's fault, but to have a week 1 or week 2 bye in a 6-game season, right, is like, that's hard, because number one, week 1, if you're not playing the first week, maybe you'll have your guys out there to kind of talk to and mesh with, but you're just watching everybody else play, and then you're kind of hoping to make a game plan, and you don't know what your guys are good at or not good at. Maybe we played the scrimmages, and then you don't see your guys again for 2 more weeks, and it just kind of can slow things down and mess up your role a little bit. And then week 2 bye, maybe you did something well, or maybe you have some things to build on, but you can't even put that into effect for another 2 weeks.
Or maybe you're on a cruise ship.
Or maybe shout out Tone, but that obviously that's something too. But no, realistically, I think it's important for both of these teams to keep finding their identity. Watching the game yesterday, we were checking out some film. I think both teams definitely are figuring it out. Little stagnancy on all sides because a major thing, just like you're saying, we all say, well, you have to figure your teammates out. You have to figure out your chemistry. How do you do that? You have to be on the floor with them because, one example, like on my squad, let's say, if me, Ant, X, Phil are all out there, obviously Ant and X want to shoot. There are 2 guys that are going to stand out on the 3, and I'm also a guy that wants to shoot. But in reality, if we're all out there and nobody's cutting to the basket, what are we doing?
Yep.
We easily could totally screw up spacing. They're just going to guard us outside, and we're not creating any depth on offense. So when I set a screen, maybe I don't pop. Maybe I roll. And that's something that you have to play with guys for a certain amount of time to actually learn that stuff. So for them to get out there, La Familia to get a 1-point win, but obviously the Magicians to stick with them the whole time, I think it's really good for them. I think if we're talking specifics, Magicians, I'd like to see Braylon get the ball a bit more. I think he got it a good bit, but he's their best player, so you just got to get him the ball more. And then La Familia side, I think they could use maybe a little more movement. Just seemed a little stagnant on offense at times, so for them to move the rock a little better, off-ball cuts, things like that. But again, only the second week for these guys, so they'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think honestly that game was just a week 1 game, right? Just because there's so many trading going on with both teams. Both teams had buys. It was really just like, what are you working with, right? You didn't have that much footage to go off of. Nick Choi going to the Magicians and Kyle going to La Familia. It kind of disrupts like how you look at film and what you do, because you take someone like Nick Choi, who's a big man, dominant in the paint, right? And he goes on to the different team and you lose him. like, what do you do? How do you readjust? Obviously, you know how he plays because he's on your team, but how does your team going to work around that? And how's Magicians going to work with him?
Yep.
That game, I would like, like you said, I would like to see Braylon get the ball more. Gator getting those passes through, because I think Braylon is such a high talent player. If he's not mentally checked into the game, and he has the control of the game, he can get mentally checked out.
You can say the same about Johnny Victor.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing. And I think that needs to be working the offense around Braylon is going to kind of be the bread and butter, right? Let him get hot and let people, like, that's what I'm worried about this week. So getting him zoned into the game and being very competitive can be very scary for the Magicians.
For sure.
On the other side of La Familia, on my end, I saw Nick not getting that much playing time. When off of week 1, Nick was the defensive player of the year. You're going to need that guy in the games. He steals, he can get some blocks. Like, he's your defensive player at the guard level. Like, when have you ever had, like, a strong guard defensive player? Like, it's very rarely ever. You usually see the 3-man being a defensive player, or the 4-man, let alone the 5th man, right? Having a number 1 that's a very defensive player is very vital for a team.
Yeah.
Especially in this league, when you have people like Phil, you have people like Dame, you have people just really, and Braylon, people can take over the game.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I think he needs to be more of that structure and, like, hey, like, let's lock down on defense, be more vocal on defense.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think another important thing, and I was talking to Dom about this when we commentated, what game was it? Reapers and Bandits, last week. Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
And this is a major thing as we're talking about the stars and letting them be stars. We're talking about role players in the league. And there's a lot of role players, and it's not just a CeleNation thing. This is, I think, just a basketball under the, I guess, higher levels thing. Role players want to be superstars, okay? If you're in this league, and maybe you're not a starter, or you're not a first or second or third option on offense, you probably shouldn't be taking 8-10 shots a game. Last game, I took 10. First 2 games, I combined for 7. And on our team last year, after my first game, I took a bunch of shots. I didn't take many after that. And part of that was, like, mental, whatever. But the thing is, I think there's guys on all teams that need to understand the role a little bit better. Because it's not to say they shouldn't take shots, because people can hit shots. If you're in this league, you're probably at least a semi-decent player that, can at least has good energy, or you can provide something good to your team. But you have to understand the flow of the offense, and when the shot comes to you, that's when you take the shot. But when role players are trying to do ISO, trying to do things that are out of their game, I think it can take your team out of it. So with a team like La Familia, or a team like the Magicians, or any of these teams that have 1 or 2 really good players, give them the ball as much as they can get it, and let them create with you, and don't try to create by yourself. They'll help you out, but sometimes role players can be killers when it comes to that.
And that's what happened with us and with the Bandits in week 1 and like week 2, especially week 1. It's when we're a shooting team, we are a shooting team, and so are you guys, right?
For sure.
If you have the role player on your team doing most of the work, and then Dean, Pat, who primarily shoot threes, only touching the ball probably maybe 6 times a half, 4 times a half. How do you expect the shooter to get hot? How do you expect the shooter to get in rhythm if they're getting cold, right? So it's passing the ball, feeling them, trusting their shots, and just like Pat did. Pat went, three threes in the
for his first 3, man. He was cooking.
Yeah, he was cooking. And that's him getting in rhythm. Like, that's him keep feeding him and making sure, like, players like that are getting the ball, especially shooters. The shooters is all about confidence in the basketball game. If you have no confidence, then you have no shot. Yeah. So it speaks volume when your teammate can trust you in your shot instead of going in for the layup, kicking it back out to your shooter. Because that tells the shooter, he trusts me. If I make this shot, one goes through, multiple others are going to go through.
Absolutely.
But I do want to shout out this one guy, and really changed the game, is Johnny Victor. I know you mentioned him. Man, he was wet. He was splashing that game. I think that was the main reason why La Familia was in that game, is he was just on go. Like, that guy can shoot. And I know Fadi was telling me that's his guy. He's a shooter. And I'm like, all right, let me see. And he splashed. He's a good shooter. So that's the last thing I want to say on that, is shout out Johnny Victor. That man's a dog.
He's good, but I think that their issue is they're too dependent on him. I think that he is their guy. And unlike every other team that's towards the top, we have multiple guys.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's their guy. Nick's their guy defensively. Job had a great game, but we saw week 1 Job had a bad game. So who's consistently your second option on offense?
Right.
They don't really have one. Nick is a decent offensive player, but the reason why he was so efficient last season is because he was the 4th, 5th option, getting phenomenal looks. He does a great job of going off ball, getting in the right spots, finding the openings. Now he's playing the 1, which he's a great facilitator, but he's not going to give you those buckets consistently throughout a game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest thing that La Familia is going to struggle with. Who's your second option? They don't really have one.
Yeah.
Mike Mitchell, Job, and Nick. No offense, they're not a second option. On a high-level team, they're not a second option.
Right.
Mike Mitchell was 6th man of the year for a reason. He's a good scorer. He's not a prolific scorer. Nick was in the top for DPOY for a reason. He's a great defender. He's not a great scorer. And Job was in the conversation of 6th man of the year because he's not a number 2 option.
Right.
I think they didn't draft perfectly well. They have a chance always because Tone is a great coach. They build chemistry, and they do understand how each other play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how far of a run they can make. I think it definitely depends heavily on Johnny.
Right.
And
Sure.
if you can combat that, I think that's unlike Nacho and Fritz, where there's a dynamic duo with good role players.
Yeah.
I think that this is a one-headed monster that can be slayed if you take out Johnny Victor.
And I think that just goes back to what me and Zane were saying. Like, get people the ball, pass the ball,
Sure.
move it around.
They are unselfish.
Yeah,
they are an unselfish team.
Yeah, they're a very unselfish
Yes.
team, and I think that's what got them the dub last Sundays.
Yes.
If you pass the ball around and let alone, there's no shot clock in this game, right?
Yep.
There's
Yeah.
no shot clock. So, and technically, this is coming from a lacrosse aspect. Like, there's as long as you keep passing, if the defense doesn't make a defensive play, you can run down the clock. So, if La Familia doesn't really have that 2-man, they just need to keep passing the ball. A spot is going to open. Like, not a lot of people are that athletic or that in condition to keep moving and switching around. So passing the ball a lot, I can see work a lot for them, and just getting people open. If you don't have a shot in 3 seconds or a drive, pass it. That's just how it goes. Run screens. Make sure they have plays written up, and I think they can be a really good team because they have that chemistry.
Yeah.
I mean, you see them in March Madness. You have 16 seeds, 14 seeds going up into the Sweet 16 because of their chemistry and because of their team.
Yeah.
It's not because they have the star players or the D1s of the athletes or the top the high school McDonald team players coming to their team. No, they play with chemistry and they're competitive and they trust each other.
Fair
so
enough.
if La Familia does that, I can see them making a move, but they need to understand as a team that's how they're going to win, not just a specific player.
Fair enough. Well, let's go into the next segment then. We are officially halfway through the regular season now. We are 3.5 weeks in.
Cheers to that,
Cheers
boys.
to that.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to
Sure,
that.
we made it in there. Rangers sitting at the top, Makos. Then we got the Dogs. Then we got La Familia. Then the Reapers and the Magicians, Bandits at the bottom. Let's make some mid-season predictions very early, but let's make some mid-season predictions. Who do you guys see as the finals matchup, and who do you see winning the championship from there?
Rangers. That's half of that finals matchup.
I would like to think that's where you would think right now, yes.
And then right now, I mean, I gotta. All right, if I have to choose one other team, right now it's the Makos. The Dogs would be the second, but there's some things you guys gotta figure out. And you're a phenomenal captain, and so that I could never count you guys out. The only reason I say the Makos is because at this current moment, you guys have more to figure out than they do. But again, you easily could do it. But the Makos are just an elite team. Now, I will say, from what I saw from the Bandits last week, man, you guys...
They're a dark horse.
I would probably give you the 4th spot over those 3. I don't think, and that's nothing against Magicians or the Reapers or La Familia or anybody, but... I mean, you guys really looked good, and they figured something out, is how I feel, when I look at those guys. And granted, I mean, I'm only talking about the 3 teams that I've played against, so all I have is film on everybody else, but you guys really do seem like you flipped the switch, and I'm scared. I'm glad that we were able to, just kind of squeak past you this week, because I think these guys are going to, be steamrolling through the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a great chance. A little thing what I'm worried about, you guys were short-manned that game too.
Yeah.
So we didn't play you guys at your full roster. We did that with Reapers weren't at the full roster in the game too. So I would like to see how we play with a team that's actually with a full roster. Like Makos had a full roster that first game. We lost by a lot. So making rotations is key to us and what we've been focusing on moving forward. I think we have a team. I think we have a team to make a push and make a dent and make some people surprised as a dark horse. But we just gotta be the team that we need to do, and we need to understand each other, trust each other, and we just need to be hitting shots. Because once we hit shots, then we don't get frustrated, and and also slow down. Like when we're up, we just need to slow down and not get too hasty, not get too excited. That's my take on that. I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna talk because we're 0-3, so we still got a lot to prove. It's not set in stone, obviously, but I'm not gonna talk until we get our first dub. That's our goal right here. That's the only goal. We're playing it game by game. Not we can go 0-6 and go in the playoffs and win the championship. No, we go game by game and trying to win each game. Makos, I actually think Makos are going to make a very deep run because last Sunday they didn't have Daryl. When you have Fritz, when you have Nacho, Fritz and Nacho are kind of like they're similar but different in the same way. Like Fritz can go to the basket more physically than Nacho can. Nacho's more swifty. And that
Nacho's so smooth, man.
So smooth. And he can and as a defensive team, like as a player, as a team playing that, like how do you guard Nacho and then Fritz, who's completely different, and then worry about Daryl down low. And then also their bench, who's coming out lights out. Obviously the Rangers, right? I think you guys can make a huge deep run if you guys keep hitting shots. X is phenomenal. You had a great game. Ant's Ant. That quick release shot is really hard to guard. Even if you're up in his face, if he can just get that off in 2.5 seconds, maybe 1.5 seconds, you guys can make a deep run. And obviously you guys have Phil, who's a phenomenal athlete. Dogs. I honestly think semifinal is going to be. If it matches up, I can see Dogs and Makos in the semifinal or Rangers. I think that's the top 3 teams. Obviously, Mike, you have been in this league. You've started this league. You know how to captain. You know your team. You've picked your team for a reason. I just think the team needs to trust that, and then also you also listen to your team. So if you guys get that squared away, you guys can be very, very, very competitive. And the Magicians and the La Familia, it's just I don't have a lot of film, like you said, to go based off of. But what I am worried about this Sunday is if Braylon and Choi can get that pick and roll. I mean that's something right there. That's gonna be bread and butter for them. So hopefully this podcast does not come out before Sunday, so they don't.
I'm sorry.
They don't do this.
We hope so.
But anyways, if it does, we have a game plan. But no, they're gonna be a good team. And then La Familia, it's like I said, I think they just need to play as a team. And they can be scary. But obviously those 2 teams, we need more film to make those statements. Right? You can't just accuse something that you don't have a lot of data or evidence to back.
Yeah.
So are we all in agreement that the Reapers are not in contention? Because
the Reapers are 0-1.
1-1.
They beat the Bandits. They beat the Bandits. They're 1-2. Lost to the bye week this past week.
That's true.
Unfortunately, the Reapers can figure it out, man. What I've heard kind of rumblings of is just they're gonna try to be a real defensive team, try to muck it up. Corey's got to pass the rock more, straight up. He's a great, phenomenal player, but he just has to pass the ball more. And we'll see what they can do. Sauce a great leader. But as of right now, much love Reapers, much love Kyson, my guy. I got them at the bottom of the pack.
Yeah, I agree entirely. I mean, obviously I'm biased. Everybody's going to pick their own team. Dogs are not going to lose another game. That's how I feel, and that's how I should feel going into it. The way it looks, you would think Dogs and Rangers. Now, it gets interesting because if things play out the way that they could, there is no way for the Dogs and the Rangers to be in the finals together, which means it would have to be Dogs and Makos in the finals.
Okay.
The way that I see it. Because we lost to the Makos. Say they win out, you guys win, we beat you in week 7.
Sure.
Makos have the tiebreaker over us. They're the 1 seed. We would have the tiebreaker over you. We're the 2 seed. You're the 3 seed. You guys win in the first round. You're now the highest seed. Since we're the lower seed out of the bye, we would play you in the semifinals.
Okay.
So I would pick myself, obviously. And then I don't know who the Makos would play. They would play 4 through 7, any other team, I think the Makos obviously have a good chance.
Yeah.
So the way things stand, unless there's an upset between Rangers, myself, or the Makos, I'm picking Makos and Dogs in the finals. And I think if that's our redemption game, we're going to kick their ass.
Right.
We're going to kick their ass.
Of course.
And that's the way that I feel about it.
You're a competitor.
Rightfully so.
And no, I didn't mean any disrespect for the Team Rangers, Reapers. That just completely crossed my mind when I just was so focused on these stats. But did not mean no disrespect to the Reapers.
They just literally weren't on the paper. They didn't play last week.
They didn't play last week.
They didn't play last week, but like you said, I've done the camera work and I've done like Parker's job when Parker's playing, and I go in there and I see Sauce as a captain, and that man, he has basketball knowledge
and he cares, man.
And he cares.
Yeah,
you can really see it when he talks, the passion, his just tone is just there, and he's a very caring captain, and I think that speaks a lot of volume.
He's a damn good player,
and
a good ball player,
and a selfless player. I think as a good of enough player he is, he's a very selfless player. I mean, when do you ever see him really just take risky shots and everything? He would rather just give his team the ball.
Yeah.
And when you see a good player like that, let alone a captain, that just goes back to your team and like, okay, I can trust him. What he's saying, because he's not a selfless player. And that just speaks volume too. Obviously, you said something about CJ. Yeah. Definitely needs to pass more, not get as frustrated. I know it's hard to not get frustrated when you're getting whacked, and especially when you're driving. But, I mean, they could be a scary team too. It's just we don't have that much film. And I'm only talking to the games that we have, all 3 films about. So Reapers are up there. Listen, at the end of the day, it's everyone's ball game, right?
There's no dominant team. There's no team that there's a clear favorite. Like, you're 3-0, you could lose any game. You almost lost to the team that's the worst team.
Yeah.
Any team can beat any team on any given day, and I said that last week in the unreleased podcast. Eric asked, "What team are you most fearful of?" I was honest. Every single team. As the 2-time champion in a row, everybody's coming for us. You know that, being on my team last year.
I know it not being on your team this year.
Yeah, they play their hardest game because they don't want to see us win. Now you guys have the target. Now that we got the L, now the Rangers have the target. Now 3-0, somebody wants to hand you guys your first L. Yeah. And now you guys are that team that every single game is dangerous. Because they want to take you out. And Bandits almost did it. And any team, you have La Familia this week. They could do it. They could beat you guys. Any team can beat any team, and that's what makes this season so exciting. It's very competitive. Yeah. As bad as some of the games have been, it's still like I still feel like it's any team's game.
Yeah, it's cool, man. I think each year the history of the league grows, and it just adds to the tradition. It adds to the rivalries and kind of the.
You get the new rivalries too.
New rivalries.
Yeah, you got Makos and Rangers now.
Oh yeah, man. No, I mean that was a phenomenal game by them. It was
great.
But also just, to get back to the Reapers a little bit, because I feel like we haven't talked about them.
Fair enough.
Last week, or 2 weeks ago, they did get Lewis back, right? They didn't have him week 1.
Yeah.
They get their what round was he?
First round.
First round pick,
yep.
They get their first round pick, they win the game. And it's nothing against you guys. I commentated that game. It was an ugly game.
Terrible game.
But
second worst game of the season.
So, realistically, you look at it and it's like, well, I mean, maybe if these guys can just keep, just like you guys, keep kind of gelling it together, putting it together. I think one thing that almost works to their advantage, we're talking about the bye week, is they got the win, and then now they have some time to chew on it. They've had some time to look over that and say what went well, what went wrong.
But now they also have a new player added in the mix. Because now they got Brandon Steed.
Oh, right, they got.
So now you got another guard,
yeah,
which they kind of needed that. Another option scoring. I feel like their ball movement was good in week 2. They did it better. Granted, Corey still had 30 shots. But they had better ball movement in week 2 than before.
It was better.
Than week 1. Brandon Steed on the Magicians during the scrimmages and during week 2 was a ball hog. A bit of a ball hog at times. Does he listen to Sauce? Play into the role? Does he fall into the trap of Corey's taking 30 shots, I'm taking 20, and this is going to be the end of it, and we're going to butt heads? I feel like coming off the bye with a new player, they're kind of entering a week 1 again. They're kind of starting fresh because Lewis only played 1 game. He didn't play great. He's obviously 6'6", whatever he is. Like, he's going to make a presence, but he had, 6 points?
Yeah, he
couldn't finish. Didn't have the touch that I've seen him have. So I think they're starting from scratch again. And it's still so early in the season, it's hard to know. But I think that takes us right into our first matchup. We have Reapers versus the Makos. Week 4. Who do you guys got? I mean, I think we all probably agree.
Are the Makos full strength?
Minus Fitz, but Daryl is back.
Okay.
And no Alfonso. So both teams last week got a suspension ordered due to a physical altercation in the parking lot. It was a warning to the league, 1-game suspension. If anybody else gets into a physical altercation, they will be expelled from the league. No refund, no anything. You can obviously keep your jersey because I don't want it. But outside of that, you're out of the league. You won't be invited back. So this is a 1-game suspension, a warning to the league. No need to fight. None of us are that good at basketball. Your ego should not get in the way that much. So Alfonso, Steve the Kid, both of them will not be playing against each other this week. I don't know what team that hurts more. They're both role players off the bench.
I'd say it's almost an even split.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Well, in that case, yeah, I'm going to go. I'd say Makos. And it's man, I hate betting against Sauce because I love what he brings to the table. Maybe Brandon Steed and CJ just end up being the perfect blend. You know, honestly, I haven't seen that much of Brandon Steed's game.
Yeah.
But I think the Makos are just a really great team, and I love the energy that team has too. So I'll take the Makos.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Makos, but I think it's gonna be a close game. I think Reapers win if Sauce can be that middle person, if it could be the middleman between Brandon and CJ, right? If he can just middleman that game and just and bring the ball up and get the passes through, right? Demand the pass from CJ when CJ is getting either double teamed or doesn't have a good look. He gets the ball, resets up top, then gives it to Brandon, and does the same thing over to Brandon. If he can just be that middleman facilitator and lead his team and just make sure they both don't ball hog and pass, that can be very scary. Especially as a captain, he's probably already telling him, like, hey, let me facilitate. He needs to facilitate and make sure his team is organized for this game. Because if they're not organized and Corey's not hitting shots and Brandon's getting frustrated, and that can be a disruption and they can lose by 15. But they come as a team, it's gonna be a lot closer game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just real quick, man, I want to shout out Kyson because I'm really interested to see how he follows it up this week.
Right.
But I saw some of his best basketball last week.
I agree.
Being a pest and being smart with the ball. I mean, he didn't. Sometimes we all know Kyson, we all love Kyson, but sometimes he just takes stupid shots. Kyson
he just doesn't care.
I'm gonna be honest.
He doesn't care in his game.
Exactly. And Kyson was out there putting it on the line, man.
Yeah,
he was
playing smart,
dirty,
passing the
playing
ball.
smart ball. Exactly.
Yep.
So talking to Sauce, you know, I know that's the identity he wants to adopt on his team. Is just really a real desire to win and a defensive mind. You know, basically being the team that wins the 50-50 plays. You know, more than 50% of the times because they care more. And if Kyson's going to keep doing that, I think they have the chance to win that game. And I'm not going to get like super deep into basketball psychology and all that sort of stuff. But I can say this about the Bandits. When they had plays last game, and I remember you specifically, I shout you out because you're getting really hype, and I heard it, dude. I love the players that bring energy. Just if you're off the bench, if you're on the bench. But when those plays happen during the game, a basketball game is almost like a story. There's little moments here and there that you can find that really change the course. It might seem like just a layup. It might seem like it was a 13-point game and now it's just 11. But when it's something that gets your team back into it, something like a guy getting low. Momentum, exactly. Something like Kyson getting an offensive rebound or a steal.
Feeds the team.
Exactly. Because Kyson's not necessarily a guy that you think is going to, you know,
make the right play.
Make the right play, right?
Yeah.
But then he does.
Right.
Well, he does something like spectacular.
Yeah.
He does a really
diving on the ground,
right.
smacking the ball to Corey for the extra play.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like when you see in the NBA and you see in the sports announcers and ESPN, they say when like Trae Young or Steph Curry or you see your small guards take the charge, right, against the big man. And they say that tells a lot. That speaks volume to the team. Because if a guy like that, a playmaker like that is willing to take a 230-pound, 6'9" guy to the chest, that means dedication. And I think this is a huge game for Kyson because it's either A, did he guard Dame that well and he's a very defensive player and he can match and they can match him up with Nacho, and if he is that defensive player and he can make Nacho, you know, a little frustrated, then he's solidified as a very good defensive player. Or B, was it just Dame off that game? I don't know that because that's the first time I've ever seen them, coexist. But if Kyson could come out like he did with the same energy in week 2, that would feed momentum for the Reapers, and that might change things. Because if you get shut down Nacho because Fritz is not there, that's a whole...
No, Fritz is there.
Fritz is there, okay.
Fitz isn't there.
Yeah. Fritz there, okay.
Which makes it tough to...
Makes it tough, but still, the point stands. If he could be that defensive player and make it hard for Nacho, we really haven't seen a game where Nacho gets frustrated or it hasn't gone his way or he hasn't scored a lot. Maybe that's the trajectory where it changes. Maybe that's where Makos fall apart, right? Like what we see in the Dogs with Dom. Like he got frustrated last week, and that kind of hurt you guys. Maybe we can see the same thing with Nacho and the Makos. So Kyson goes out and balls, man, I would love that for him because he's a dedicated player, and I hope he does that. And I hope he proves, because I was talking to him at Lakeside last week, and I'm like, maybe Dame was probably off, but if he could shut my mouth and say he's a defensive player, I'll just say good job. That's a good-hearted player right there.
Yeah. Game of the day. Probably the game of the day. Actually, I would say the last game is because somebody's going to lose their O.
Mm-hmm.
But that middle game is still important. La Familia versus the Rangers. The obvious pick is the Rangers. I bet against you guys last week with the Bandits. I was wrong. I'm not going to do it again. I'm going to bet Rangers. You guys got Chief back, I'm assuming.
Yep.
You have a full squad. Jason Channel.
I think, Jason Channel might, I know he's going to New York. He's got some performance stuff going on.
Good for him.
So, yeah, it's sick, but I'm not sure if he'll be back.
Okay, so 8 or 9 guys, but you got your point guard back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to pick against you guys. I think La Familia doesn't quite have enough offensively. I think you guys are going to struggle to guard Johnny, but you put Chili on Johnny, and that's going to kind of neutralize it. You guys got a better team. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you guys win that game. It might be a close game because of the chemistry that we spoke about, but I think I pick Rangers on that one.
Yeah.
Makos Rangers.
Yeah, I pick Rangers. I just, yet again, I don't like to speak out of context, but I haven't seen that much from the new, La Familia side. So I have seen a lot of Rangers ball. I've seen them click. I've seen them work together. Gave us a hard time last week. Giving other teams a hard time. Definitely going to pick the Rangers over this. You guys are just... It's just so hard when you have multiple threats. And it's crazy, too, because you guys don't really have a big man. Like, yes, you have Chili, but he's not like a...
He's an athlete, man.
Yeah, he's an athlete, but he's not he's not the Nick Choi, he's not the Daryl.
If you look at Season 2, I know you're a rookie, but Season 2 and 3, we didn't have a big. We didn't have a big either of those years. You don't need a big.
Yeah.
In this league, you don't need a big. It hasn't proved... Chili was the big in Season 1, and they won on the green team. So, this league is very much guard-oriented, and if you can spread the floor and hit threes, you're in a good spot. And that's what the Rangers have been doing. They've been hitting their shots. They've been taking a lot of shots. That's what's conducive to winning. Unfortunately, we saw last season with the Gators, they had all the size. They had Joel, the best big man of last season. Mm-hmm. They went 1-5. So, it's hard to build your team around a big in this league.
Yeah, and it's just hard to guard you, guard X, guard Ant, and then on top of that, like I said, 10 minutes ago, and guard Phil at the same time. And then Chili, who's a very athletic person. It's
physical.
And physical.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing with Chill, man.
And dominant.
And then Boogie coming off the bench doing the same thing that Chili is. Mucking it up, being very physical. You guys, 1 through 7, you're solid. Andre had a rough game. He was in his head. He's got to get back into it mentally. And then Jason Channel hasn't really had too much to show this season, but we know that he's good for one. He's good for one shot a game. He'll play very hard. He'll give you some good minutes in that regard. You got to respect a guy that's just out there hustling as hard as he can. And Andre's going to hustle. It's just he didn't figure it out last game.
Andre got that. So he was at Lakeside this week, and
good for him.
I love to see that.
I love Andre. I'm rooting for Andre. Yeah. He had a rough go about it last game.
Right. But you like to see a player have a rough go about and then getting back back in the court and fixing them. That's something that you guys can take away, that you guys have had the person that's going to give 100% effort, right? If you have a good player that's only giving 10% effort, that's cool and everything, but if you have someone that's actively motivating you guys, like how I do on the Bandits, and constantly just pushing you guys and being there, that's teamwork. And I think Andre brings that, and I think him getting to the court this week, I think that shows determination. That's all you want from a player.
Good for Andre. Gotta love Andre.
Shout out Andre.
Yeah, big shout out.
No, huge shout out Andre, man. And the thing is with Andre and Boogie in a different way, but with Andre, I talked to him after last game because I knew, I saw his game. I subbed him out because he was having a tough time. And the thing is, he made some really great plays. You look at the film, he had some really good offensive rebounds, talking about over numerous guys. but it's what he did with the ball afterwards that screwed him up a little bit. But the thing is, just in the game, you guys know, if you're just going to pick at the bad things you did, you're never going to get better. Step one, find your zone. Find what your wheelhouse is. For him,
figure out your niche.
He actually has a knack for getting in the spot and finding some rebounds. But after that, it's just, all right, hold that ball in the air, find somebody to kick it out to. Yeah, maybe go back up in some situations. If you think you can finish it, go back up. But for him, it's just slow it down a little bit. Talk to him after the game. Definitely was in his own head and stuff like that. But he'll work out it. And I got to shout out Boogie, man. I mean, you talk about, that's got to be one of my favorite players in the league. The energy he brings to the game,
I love when he hit the three and he's just shooting the sideline.
Yeah,
you gotta love Boogie,
you gotta
man.
love that
You gotta
guy.
love Boogie.
He always brings energy. I mean, he's a good defender, solid offensive rebounder. Solid rebounder, period.
He plays hard, man.
Yeah.
I think he's a prime example, and this is something that personally I didn't do the first 2 weeks, is Boogie's a prime example of you're coming off the bench, and some people might get a little stage fright just with cameras, and they're, you've heard it first. People play different at Lakeside than with the other league. I think people coming off the bench, and it happened to me the first 2 weeks, and I messaged you on Facebook about it, is go out there and have fun. It's not, the more you get more in your head, the harder it is to perform. Literally, your job is there. You came for this league to have fun and to make connections with new friends and play the game that you love. And I think that's what Boogie has done the last 3 weeks. He goes in there and he's not worried about the shot he takes. He's not worried about how he's performing. He's just out there having fun. And I think that's something that every bench player needs to know. It's go out there and have fun and don't worry about anything else but having fun. And then your shots will come, your performance will come because you're not so close-minded on that mentality of I need to do X, Y, and Z. So I think he's a prime example of someone who is having fun out there on the bench, on the court, and it shows in his gameplay. He's just an aggressive player. So shout out Boogie. He's a good guy to replicate people that are doing the bench and just needs to have fun. So
fair enough, man.
Shout out Boogie. I'm taking the Rangers.
Oh yeah. So we got Makos and Rangers unanimously in the first two games. They have the two top seeds for a reason. And then the last game of the day, game of the week, we'll wrap it up quickly, but Bandits versus Magicians. I mean, I think after last week, I'm picking the Bandits, but you can't count out the Magicians. I think that they have one of the best starting fives in the league. You got Braylon, Nick Choi, who needs to be more aggressive, CJ, Eric, and you got Gator. Gator's got to be less aggressive. Nick Choi's got to be more aggressive. I think Eric played a pretty good job of doing his role. CJ did a decent job. And Braylon's got to just demand the ball.
Yeah.
I think they got to figure each other out, but I like their starting five. And I'm still picking the Bandits because you guys had the fallout after week 2 and then the comeback in week 3. You're missing your captain. I think Dean is stepping in as captain this week.
Yep.
I don't know. I go with Bandits. I think week 4 is the week for the Bandits.
Yeah. Magicians, they do have a really strong starting five. You look at CJ, Braylon, Gator, Nick Choi now, and then who's their fifth?
Eric.
And Eric. Oh, and I mean, Eric. All quality players. They're strong, man, but I think they're wheeling a little bit. 0-2 now, obviously off the trade. I think a lot of people we're looking at the Magicians as they came out on top of the trade. Then I know they had a decent game at one point, but they still lost. And I think the Bandits are in the opposite trajectory. They kind of had their, like you said, the fallout, so to speak. And I think they're figuring it out now. Like I said, what's dangerous about them is the last game didn't feel like an anomaly. It felt like they were playing together. They were making good passes. They were getting good shots. They stuck with it. Everybody was engaged. And I wish I was there for the Magicians game. I didn't see it in person to see exactly kind of what the vibe I was getting from the bench was. But what I got from the Bandits, man, like I said, I think they're dangerous. So I'm definitely taking the Bandits this week.
The Bandits, you guys actually figured out your starting five.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna definitely say that Noah's welcome because he was planning on starting the same starting five, and I explained to him that Pat played center in high school. Montel's a 3. Yeah. Montel cannot play a 5. You want Montel to guard Chili. He's your most athletic guy. He's a 3. I guess you could put him at a 4 in this league, but Pat's your 5. Kyle King's your backup 5. Dean is a prolific scorer when getting started. Have him come off the bench so you have somebody that can give you buckets off the bench.
Yeah.
They do that. Some of the other rotations are iffy throughout the game, but
Pat got taken out right after he...
Yeah,
for sure, went 3 for 3, but that wasn't it also. You have Phil on the court, and neither Montel or Dame are in the game to guard him. There's rotations that need to be thought of. You need a good ball handler on the court, either Marcus or Dame, and then you need Montel or Dame on the court. So there's little things that Noah's going to learn, but he put in a lot more effort. I know you had the little book where you guys are doing the rotation, so hopefully Dean does something similar this week. Yeah, I definitely think that figuring out personnel and where people can actually thrive was the difference maker for you guys.
Yeah, I think we're gonna win this week. I like, obviously it's my team, but if I was non-biased, but I do think we're gonna win this week. We have our rotations down. It got to the point where it's the last 3 games. It's our rotation hasn't been like correct. Like we're rotating guys that shouldn't be in the position that we should be rotating them, right? So it's like we're like I'm coming in for like Dean, like that and while Pat's on the floor, like that should never happen. Like I should come in for Pat. Like we should have one big man out there in rotations. So I think our rotation is going to get good. We've already had a game plan set up, so rotation is going to be good. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Magicians is going to deal with how we dealt with week 2 and how we lost and now we're like, what the hell we're doing. And I think that's I hope we win and they have their fallout, but it's going to be a close game and they're going to learn from each other and they're going to learn from next game. And I think that's this is the game where they're going to learn. What I will say is, Braylon and Nick Georgie that do that give and take, the pick and roll, like that's deadly, especially against us. We've had a struggle this whole season with rebounding. Like if you look at our stats for the last 3 games, last week was actually the first game we rebounded a team, out rebounded you guys. Obviously, you guys, the Chili's, you guys is big man, and that always should happen. But we should have crushed you guys on offensive rebounds, and you guys had a lot of offensive rebounds. Week 1 and week 2, we got severely out rebounded. So it's just fighting to get the ball, making the extra effort. If we do all that while slowing down and realizing the pace of the game and passing the ball and spreading the offense, I think we can win. And also, Marcus should be the only one bringing the ball up. That's what we've established, that he's a good IQ player. He knows the game of the basketball, and he has handles. He should be the guy bringing the ball up. No one else. Let everyone get set on offense, and we should be fine.
Yeah. So we're all in agreement. Makos, Rangers, and the Bandits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm here with Kyle King, Big Bird himself, the Bandit. A little gun action. Beautiful. And Z Money, maybe 2-time 6th man of the year. Maybe.
I mean,
we'll see.
I'm more a fan of 3-time champion.
Maybe 3-time champion. To me, I'm not on the bench, so I would say 6th man of the year. I'm champion, but we'll see what happens. CeleTake week 3. That's a wrap.
Peace.
Peace, guys.